So I've just fitted these Chinese resets that I got off eBay, and I thought it was worth mentioning some of the highlights, lowlights of fitting them, as they didn't come with instructions. So hopefully this will help somebody out there. Okay, so I got some Rearsets off of eBay, Chinese listing, that would fit the R6. Now, I didn't notice at the time, but in the listing it does mention there is no instructions. So I've printed off here all of the images from the eBay listing. I'll also pop the eBay listing in the description below. Now, most of it, if you've ever done Lego or Meccano, is a doddle to figure out what goes where and how it fits together. What I would say though is that even within the images, there's these parts here which are never shown fitted to the bike or the rear sets. Now, for reference, these 4 spacers here go between the rear sets at the points where it mounts to the frame. So they sit in between the rear set and the frame. The 2 bolts here, this bracket and spring, are all for hooking up the rear brake light switch. Now, my bike doesn't have a brake light or brake light switch, so I didn't need them for this install. However, I did find a use for them. I'll come back to that. Finally, this linkage here is to go from, I don't know what you can see here, this plate here forward onto the actual gear change mechanism. Now, some of the bits that are a little bit more confusing as to where they may go or not is there are some black spacers which are a bit longer, and one goes here and one similarly on the other side goes here. Now, they are different sizes, and the longer of the 2 goes on the gear lever side, and the bolts that come with them, there is a longer and shorter one. Now, counterintuitively, the longer one goes with the shorter spacer, as this one here, although the spacer's longer, it threads straight into this part of the rear set, whereas on the brake lever side it goes through a mount much like the end of one of those, and has a nut on the other side, so it has to go through a bit more. And the piece that is like that here goes onto the brake master cylinder. What also isn't very clear is if we switch over here, we have here this plate here that comes down and mounts into one of the holes on this bracket here. Now, with this removed, there's a pattern to where this can be mounted. Obviously it goes to a different set depending on where you want the footrest to actually sit. And the pattern is that there's 1, then 3, then 2, and lower down there is also again the same pattern like that, but there is one extra hole here which is the one that this plate mounts to. It's got its own hole. Finally, I'll go back to these 2 bolts, spring and bracket. Now, I didn't use the bracket or the spring for anything, but when fitting this, I noticed that on the original rear sets there is a return spring, so that once you've depressed the lever, you let it go, it springs back, and there is nowhere to mount that on these rear sets. Looking online, it seems like you can, I did test this, you can just rely on the master cylinder pushing back once you let off, but I've also seen enough stories about people saying that the rear brake's banged on. Now, what I did find is on the reverse side of here, about here, there is a screw thread where if you screw the long bolt of the 2, there is also then a spot up here where you can put the small one and stick the spring on there, and that seems to work fine. The only thing I advise is washers on these bolts to make sure the end of the springs doesn't come off. Okay, hopefully that's been of help to somebody. Thanks very much.